always liked about New York. These little moments on the sidewalks, you can watch the buildings, you can look at the people. Sometimes meet somebody you feel like you can talk to.
Don't ignore what's happening here. We're having some kind of powerful, weird alchemy, and you have to pay attention when that happens.
No.
Hi, I'm Michael Phillips of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm A.O. Scott of the New York Times. There are 8 million stories in the naked city, to which New York, I Love You, the follow-up to the charming Paris, Je t'aime, adds about a dozen. They're oblique little vignettes from an eclectic bunch of international directors, ranging from Bad Boys auteur Brett Ratner to the German-Turkish Cannes Prize winner Fatih Akin. A lot of well-known actors show up too, including Orlando Bloom, Ethan Hawke, Juno's Olivia Thirlby, and Natalie Portman, playing an Orthodox Jewish diamond broker named Rivka.
So where's my invitation for your wedding?
Did you invite me to your wedding?
Oh, I wish I had. 25 years I've been trading with Hasidic people. I know nothing about them, they know nothing about Jain peoples.
Strictly business. We don't come to 47th Street to chit-chat.
That segment, one of the most interesting in this very uneven movie, was written and directed by Mira Nair. And it's one of the few that takes account of the rich human variety that is such a vital part of New York's identity. Most of the stories are precious little anecdotes turning on contrived ironies and self-conscious conversations, like this one between Robin Wright Penn and Chris Cooper.
We're going to talk about what?
Things you can say to a stranger. You know, when there's no past, there's no guilt. Have you ever made love to a perfect stranger?
Yeah, you're teasing me.
Now, last time I checked, there were 5 boroughs in New York, but only one brief chapter of New York, I Love You ventures beyond Manhattan. And none of them offers a very credible sense of a city that has been loved so much better in other films, from Breakfast at Tiffany's to Annie Hall to Do the Right Thing. Yes, I know, this movie is supposed to be about the fantasy and the romance of New York City, not the actual place where some of us happen to live. But this one is strictly for tourists. Skip it.
You know, Brooklyn completely left off the map.
Well, Brooklyn has a little bit. There's no Queens, no Staten Island, no Bronx. There's barely any African-American people, one Spanish speaker, no gay New Yorkers.
No, and
apparently.
there are no gay people in New York last time I checked. So, yeah, here's one thing that did surprise me. All these different directors who have worked in all these different styles in their own projects come together, and the film only feels like 2 or 3 different sort of approaches are represented. They don't really feel like wildly different attacks on the material.
Yes, I noticed that too. Every single story kind of works the same way. You have 2 people who come together. You think one thing is going on. It turns out something else is going on.
It's like an acting class exercise. But I did like this film more than you do the Tony. I think 4 or 5, maybe even 6 of the vignettes
like
still work.
which, for
I think the Alan Hughes directed one with Drea De Matteo and Bradley Cooper, who play kind of a one-night stand. Take a look at this, Tony, and I'll tell you why this one worked.
I didn't realize we were going to go home together at that point. Idiot.
It's a bad idea with this girl. What am I saying? She's not a girl. I had no idea how old she is. Why am I walking 30 blocks to this bar? I'm not in a good space for this.
There's no plot in this segment. It's all about mood and character and feeling, and that's why this works. It's not trying to tell a whole story.
I think that's right, and it does capture the rhythm of the city a little bit. But the rest of it, I mean, I think they just really should have called it, you know, New York, I'm going to use you and never call you back, because it's so superficial and offhand and shallow.
I'm waiting for Sheboygan. I'm ambivalent. That's the next one I want to see in this. I say rent it, though. I say rent it. Okay, next movie. Michelle Monaghan is one of the few familiar female faces in Hollywood who would actually be convincing in the role of a long-haul trucker. She doesn't have to act tough. Resilience seems to come to her naturally. In Trucker, Monaghan plays Diane, who 10 years ago abandoned her husband and infant son. Now, young Peter is 11, and circumstances have flung the boy back into her life.
Seems weird for a woman to be driving a truck.
Yeah, well, what should I be doing?
I don't know, something else.
Yeah, well, I like being my own boss. I own that truck. I paid it off this year. It's a hell of a lot better than being a nurse or a waitress or something.
You might believe that conversation, but most of Trucker comes off like a sincere but totally artificial slice of life. Monaghan, the young Jimmy Bennett, plus Nathan Fillion, Benjamin Bratt as the other men in Diane's life, they're all effective. As far as first-time writer-director James Matern lets them go, which is not far enough, I really didn't believe any of this film. Skip it, I say.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because there's a certain type of movie like this, that kind of tries to look at the harsh life and emotional crisis of a blue-collar person somewhere in America. You see a lot of these movies at the Sundance Film Festival.
Film, yeah.
And it's always interesting to think, why do some of them work and some of them don't? Why does a movie like Wendy and Lucy work so well? Why does a movie like Frozen River work somewhat?
Oh, quite a bit better than Trucker,
yes,
I would say.
But why is it that Trucker, which is kind of struck from the same template, just so completely unconvincing?
Oh, here's why. Here's the answer.
Please,
the answer to this is that it's a matter of how much plot and machinery I think the filmmakers throw onto the characters. I think in Frozen River you're talking about a film that is arguably overplotted, but Melissa Leo, among others, so good in it. You don't mind going with some of the more obvious melodrama. In Trucker, you have an actress who's, I'd say, almost up to Melissa Leo's level. Michelle Monaghan, very good, but my God, this thing is just plotted with all contrivance and convenience.
Well, and it telegraphs every step of the way. You know exactly what's going to happen, and you don't really care. So skip it. Coming up next, a sports movie for people who don't like sports. We'll review The Damned United.
And later, the movie that tops my list of the best films of the year so far, Where the Wild Things Are.
Monopoly is back at McDonald's, and this year, my family and I want to win big, baby. Play online every day for a chance to win $1 million, plus a lot of cash and food prizes. Start playing now. Collect or win instantly. Play online or text. Go to McDonald's. Where else? I want to win $1 million. Do you?
Breaking up is hard to do.
Breaking up is hard to do. So Allstate will do it for you. Switch to Allstate, and your new agent will help tell your old insurance company goodbye, saving you that uncomfortable breakup moment and serious cash. Drivers who switched saved an average of $396 a year, $473 if they dumped Geico. Breaking up is easy to do. That's Allstate, Stand. Are you in good hands?
Wing lovers are falling for El Pollo Loco's new Buffalo Loco wings, smothered in our own spicy Buffalo Loco or tangy smoky barbecue sauce. They're saucy, they're irresistible, and they're all yours.
Susie Hoosteen reporting live. Christmas has been stolen. Every trimming, every trapping, every ribbon, every wrapping.
You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch.
Did you guys get that?
You're a mean one.
Broadway's holiday hit, Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the musical, is coming to the Pantages Theater November 10th. Now on sale. Get tickets today at the Pantages box office or visit Ticketmaster.com.
In these challenging times, El Pollo Loco wants you to know you can still provide a healthier, delicious meal for your family at an incredible value. Now you can get a whole chicken for just $4 with any family meal purchase.
This has the potential to become a really big story.
What did you come into football for?
Support the football club of my hometown. The club I've supported all my life.
Well, I'm sure we all admire your loyalty.
What I didn't come into it for is to be lectured by some cocky little prat from the northeast.
But the way I see it, there's no point being in this game unless you want to beat the best and be the best.
Next up is The Damned United, starring Michael Sheen, who's the kind of actor you almost don't recognize from one movie to the next. And he has an unusual knack for playing real figures from recent history. He was British Prime Minister Tony Blair in The Queen, journalist and television personality David Frost in Frost Nixon, and now he plays Brian Clough.
Well, we're very different people, Don and I. We have different styles in football and in life. I'm a warm man, an idealist. I do believe in fairies, and that's my outlook. Don is slightly different. There's a hardness to him. He's a cold person.
No, you don't know me.
In case you didn't already know, Clough was the coach of the Leeds United soccer team for 44 ill-starred days in 1974. We've just seen him with his predecessor, Don Revie, who's played by the terrific Colm Meaney. Clough is obsessed with Revie, who's both role model and nemesis. The Damned United, which was directed by Tom Hooper from Peter Morgan's script, is the rare sports movie that's all about failure. Whereas most movie coaches turn a bunch of losers into champions, Clough, from his very first day on the job, does the opposite.
You lot may all be internationals, and have won all the domestic honours there are to win under Don Revie. But as far as I'm concerned, the first thing he can do for me is to chuck all your medals into the biggest flipping dustbin you can find, because you've never won any of them fairly.
The story flashes back from Clough's disastrous tenure at Leeds to the years of his tumultuous rise, assisted by Peter Taylor, his loyal right-hand man, played by the ever-dependable Timothy Spall. The Damned United is a gritty, modest movie, but within its narrow scope, it touches on some themes that are almost Shakespearean. It's a story of rivalry, vanity, and mad, destructive ambition. Well worth seeing.
I think Shakespearean is pushing it a little bit.
Well, he's lost soccer tragedies, of course.
Yes, that was a beautiful, beautiful series of history plays. But I think, too, it's a film about failure, but it's really more about learning from failure. And what I love about the dramatist here, Peter Morgan, the screenwriter, with films like Last King of Scotland, The Queen, Frost Nixon, he's always taking these historical events and tilting the angle just slightly so you don't get the focus on the come-from-behind triumphal kind of resurrection of this guy's career.
What's interesting about Brian Clough is that you learn right at the end in a little text kind of footnote that he went on to become one of the great coaches of all time, even surpassing Don Revie. Now, in a Hollywood movie, that would be the story, how he vanquished this adversary.
Yeah, this isn't We Are Marshall. This is We Aren't Marshall.
Not at all. And this is, who cares if we're Marshall or not? It's much more interesting to look at the humiliation, at just the train wreck of this guy trying to work with this bunch of players who don't like him, who he has no respect for.
Sheen is wonderful. He's a wonderful actor because he doesn't beg for audience sympathy. And the way he and Timothy Spall play these scenes, you really get a true and full dramatic sense of how two coaches can work together, split apart, and then realize they need each other.
Yes, and also just the kind of the drama that Michael Sheen always plays in these Peter Morgan scripts of the guy going up against some kind of mysterious, Mr. Big, whether it's Nixon or the Queen or Don Revie, this kind of young, scrappy, ambitious guy colliding with the old world.
This is very juicy stuff. I say see it. As The Damned United proves, all sorts of very British exports can connect with an American audience, even if they're not set at Hogwarts. But our next movie, unfortunately, is a modernized version of an old English favorite, and the film is, well, it stinks. St. Trinian's is the name of the malicious all-girls boarding school created by cartoonist Ronald Searle back in the 1940s. Searle's cartoons became a series of films, the first two in the 50s, starring Alistair Sim in a drag role as the headmistress. It's Rupert Everett, this time wearing the wig and heels, and here the old girl connects with the education minister, played by Colin Firth.
What's going on, Miss Fritton?
The girls are hard at work, and their headmistress is rehearsing the role of a lifetime. Don't you think I make a remarkable queen?
You're up to something, and I will get to the bottom of it. Make no mistake, I will expose you.
Yeah, to me, Firth looks like he's changing his mind about being in this movie while the cameras are running. Directors Oliver Parker and Barnaby Thompson push for laughs every second with no finesse, no timing, no nothing. This film got trashed pretty roundly in England when it came out there 2 years ago. Yet there's already a sequel due later in the year in the UK. Maybe it'll work, but St. Trinian's not working has nothing to do with it being too English. It has to do with it being too lousy. I say skippity-doo-dah to this thing.
Yeah, I'm surprised to say that, because usually, you know, a movie with schoolgirls in uniform and Rupert Everett in drag, I'd be right there. But even that doesn't work. This is just, it's like watching some kind of hyped up episode of some weird tweener comedy. I mean, but it just, every scene is so frantic and desperate to make you laugh, to be clever, to be naughty, and none of it works.
None of it, no. And it's like this. These directors learned every one of the wrong lessons from guys like Ken Russell, Terry Gilliam, all about the camera doing this and just, you know, push. And
who made some good movies.
Good movies,
also,
but
at least the first of the Alistair Sim ones, The Bells of St. Trinian's.
Sim's marvelous.
It's a lovely movie, and it's naughty, it's mischievous, it's fun. You know, I don't know if it's readily available out there in the DVD world, but
see it if you haven't. I say that one, the old one.
Yes. But this one, skip it. Coming up next, one of the most inventive children's movies of all time. We'll review Where the Wild Things Are.
And on next week's show, Hilary Swank and Richard Gere take on the story of Amelia Earhart in Amelia.
If you miss this island, you're out of fuel with 2,000 miles to go.
You are now the king, and you will be a truly great king.
Hey, King, what's your first order of business?
It's the Wild Rumpus.
There are so many books and movies out there aimed at children, but only a few that really get at how kids think and what they feel. Part of the reason is that a lot of grown-ups don't want to acknowledge that children, just like everyone else, can be angry, sad, destructive, and confused. We'd prefer to see them as sweet and innocent. The great author and illustrator Maurice Sendak had no such illusions, and his masterpiece, Where the Wild Things Are, celebrates childhood in all its unruly glory.
See? This guy gets it. Hey, weird little thing. I like the way you destroy stuff. Good technique. There's a spark to your work that can't be taught.
That's a scene from Spike Jonze's adaptation of Wild Things, a movie that Michael and I agree is one of the best of the year so far. It expands on Sendak's simple story of a boy named Max who journeys to a land of monsters. The movie gives those monsters voices and personalities and shows Max, played by Max Records, to be a tricky and not always completely likable young fellow.
So obviously you have no home or family.
I had one of those,
But you ate them all?
No, I just bit one of them, that's all, and it went crazy.
That heart-to-heart between Max and KW, a wild thing voiced by Lauren Ambrose, is one of the quiet, melancholy moments that makes this movie so distinctive. Not that it's somber exactly. The script, which Jones wrote with Dave Eggers, is full of fine little jokes. Sendak's book is one you can read over and over and over, and this is a movie that you should see and then see it again.
Yeah, I'm crazy about this film, Tony, and I think...
Do you think everyone will be?
No, it's polarizing. I think it's absolutely... I already have heard from people who think it's, it's too dark, it's too, depressing. I don't receive it that way. I mean, I
like dark and depressing.
Well, yeah, but it's not... It is not a heavy-handed picture. No. This book, 338 words long, and everything they've added, everything that Spike Jonze and Dave Eggers have added to this thing, it's just sort of filled out this world, and in many ways, the film is quite faithful to the original. In fact, the wild things we see on screen are a beautiful mixture of, actual Wild Thing suits and really exquisite CGI facial expression.
I mean, what Jones and Eggers have done is take these monsters that don't have names or personalities or stories and given them all that, and yet somehow it feels like it all grows out of what Maurice Sendak originally did, and that's amazing.
It's pure invention, but visually it does hold very close to the original drawings, and I think the whole thing is pure magic. I say, see it. Coming up next, we get into a playground fight about kids' movies in a special segment.
It's not going to end up in a disaster.
Earlier in the show, Tony and I gave high praise to Spike Jonze's new film, Where the Wild Things Are. So that got us thinking about the state of children's films, particularly children's films adapted from books. And Tony, Cloudy with the Chance of Meatballs, your favorite film of the year, it ruled the box office in September, and a big hit. For me, it's like you pile Meatballs on top of the Shrek films, on top of Ice Age films, many of them, billion-dollar sellers. But why is it that we resist a lot of these pictures?
Well, the problem with Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, which is not, I think, adapted from any great masterpiece, from a nice little book with some nice line drawings and a funny title and a funny premise, sort of blows it up into this big Hollywood kids spectacle. So it's full of noise and junk.
That film answers the question of who is this film for? Well, it's got plenty of stuff for the kids. It's all basically, empty calorie eye candy kind of coming at you all the time. But there's also the wisecracks, the sardonic stuff for the older folks. And the thing I love about, Spike Jonze's film is that it doesn't have that kind of pop culture reference that is littering the Shrek series. You can look at something like Coraline, too. Coraline, adapting a full-length book. That's a film I think we both liked a lot. And that's pure magic and also dark material, like Where the Wild Things Are. But I think parents are more flipped out about kind of, are our kids old enough for this than kids.
But it also respects the vision of the original. I mean, I think that there's a temptation in Hollywood, a very strong temptation, almost irresistible, to go in and mess with stuff. So Coraline, Neil Gaiman's book, they managed somehow to sort of to keep what was unique and characteristic about that book, as Spike Jonze and Dave Eggers did. But you take Shrek, I mean, for me, that's the classic counterexample that kind of sets off the whole industry of these big, CGI animated children's spectacles, which takes, again, a simple picture book by William Steig, who is, I think, one of the great children's authors, and blows it up into, just as you say, there's the wisecracking sidekick.
And every one of them has a reference to Apocalypse Now, which does not make sense to anybody anymore.
Like the 7-year-olds are like, oh, that's funny.
But I think it's the worst kind of jaded and knowing humor. But
also the worst kind of sentimentality. sexuality wrapped around it. So every kids movie has to end, however vulgar and coarse the humor has been, has to end with an
the friendship
affirmative
lesson, the friendship lesson.
Love yourself, everybody's different, everybody's special, and nobody believes it, and kids least of all.
Look, hats off to Warner Brothers for staying true to Spike Jones on Where the Wild Things Are. It is truly special. Go to our website and click on Web Exclusives, where Tony and I will talk about some of our all-time favorite kids' movies.
Coming up next, you can't decide what to see this weekend? Stay tuned for my 3 to See.
Music lover, and I'm worried about your cello.
Closed captioning for At the Movies is sponsored by...
And now for my 3 to See. The theaters are filling up with interesting stuff, so here's some movies you shouldn't let pass you by. Number 3 is An Education, the story of a British schoolgirl seduced by an older fellow in England in 1962. I'm a little queasy about some aspects of the story, but I like the period flavor and especially the performances by Carey Mulligan as the young lady in question and Peter Sarsgaard as the charming, untrustworthy seducer. Number 2 is Coco Before Chanel, with Audrey Tautou playing the great designer before she became famous. It's less a biopic than a vivid snapshot of the sexual mores and class relations of early 20th century France. And the clothes are pretty fabulous too. And number 1, I'll roar my terrible roar and gnash my terrible teeth and tell you to put on your wolf suit, get in your sailboat, and go to where the wild things are now.
That's it for now. Remember, we're always online. Just go to atthemoviestv.com.
We'll leave you with a recap of this week's show. Join us next week when we'll review Hilary Swank and Richard Gere in Amelia. And until then, we'll be at the movies.
Activon Ultra Strength for powerful pain relief. A convenient applicator means no messy creams. Activon, applied directly where it hurts for joint pain, muscle pain, arthritis, and backache.
Millions of pet owners trust 1-800-PET-MEDS for fast service, free shipping, and big savings. Call now or order online from 1-800-PET-MEDS, America's largest pet pharmacy.
What superfruit is taking America by storm? Sunsweet Ones.
Prunes? Wow. It's packaged by itself. That's fantastic.
This is delicious. Sunsweet Ones, the remarkable superfruit. The Nesquik Guide to Health and Happiness. Stay active. New 100-calorie Nesquik. Come to your happy place.